So good evening. We are going to continue learning chapter 35 and we'll conclude, God willing, today to study chapter 35. And I also want to first, of course, mention and dedicate tonight's class to the shliach in Dubai who was murdered in a horrible attack, and his funeral was just today, this afternoon. It was evening in Israel. So I want to dedicate tonight's class to Tzvi ben Alexander Sender HaKohen. And in Judaism, we refer to any Jew who gave up his life as a Jew. We refer to him as Hakadosh, as a holy person. And Hashem Yinkim Damai, that God should avenge his blood. And we shouldn't have any more suffering. God should bring a comfort to the family. And it's just so absolutely horrible. So what can we say? There's nothing to say. So Hashem should comfort all of us, all the Jewish people. But dear friends, chapter 35. Okay. We're building up here a pretty big idea. Let's back up a little bit. Why is Judaism so action-centric here? That's really the driving question that started chapter 35, and as I mentioned previously, chapter 35 is very much a new topic in Tanya. Okay. The Alter Rebbe brought to us a very powerful piece from the Zohar, the classic book of Kabbalah, that the flame of God, the flame of God's presence, which in Hebrew we call that the Shekhinah. Every single Jew has the fire of the Shekhinah, it's like a flame, upon their head. Now, flames can't exist by themselves. A flame needs to, number one, have a wick. So the wick for the flame of God's presence in your life is your body. Your body is the wick. But then you need oil. You need a fuel. What fuels the Shekhinah, the presence of God in your life? That is the mitzvahs we do, the good deeds. And the question was, what is the power that a mitzvah, a deed, has over what the way the Alter put it was a soul? A soul's already holy. A soul's already godly. What more do you need? You got a soul already. You got a spiritual soul that's capable of spiritual experiences. Why do you need mechanical mitzvahs? And that's really the tension over here. A mitzvah is mechanical. Okay, put on tefillin, light a Shabbos candle. It's a mechanical act. And here we're saying that mechanical act, which doesn't necessarily have any emotion, doesn't necessarily have any inspiration to it, doesn't have any deep experiences, it's just you're doing something. That is fuel to bring God into the life of a Jew more than spiritual tremendous experiences. Yeah. If a Jew wants to sustain the flame of God's presence in their life, you need to be doing mitzvahs. And that was the question. Why is that? And the Alter told us something which is pretty wild, a very powerful idea. And I want to recap with you because this is a very critical idea. We live in a world, the way God made the world is, that the world is made in such a way that in its very DNA, the way the world was created, it's created with a sense of separation from God. Which means this pen, by its very mere existence, the pen didn't even do anything. It exists. Its existence itself is an obstruction to the truth of God. And we experience this. We look at a pen, we don't see God. We look at the wall, I don't see God. I look at a tree, I don't see God. Now, that is just a lie, because God created the tree. God is the very force of power for the tree. The very energy of the tree is godly energy. But the way we perceive it and the way that we experience it is with a very strong disconnection from God. That's how we experience reality, and that's also how we experience ourselves. We experience ourselves as something other than, separate from God. Because of that, we all have a certain handicap. Anything that's created has a handicap. And that handicap is, by your very existence, you are something other than God. And other than God means you're an obstruction to the truth of God. Because the truth of God is that God is the truth of everything. The truth of God is that God is everywhere, everything, powering everything. So this pen didn't do anything wrong. But this pen is an obstruction to the truth of God. Because it tells you that it exists. And it doesn't tell you anything about God. And that is an obstruction of God. And that's really the world that we live. That's the world that we experience. Life as we experience it is a life where God is simply pushed out of reality. The truth of God is obstructed within our world. Says the Alter Rebbe, you could have tremendous emotional feelings about God. You could have tremendous spiritual experiences. But at the end of the day, you're not getting past the idea that you, by your very existence, are something other than God. Which basically means even your love of God itself is ironically an expression of saying, I'm something other than God. I love God. So you're saying there's me, and then there's God, and then I have an emotional association to God. But that's a sense of separation. That sense of separation is itself a denial, a departure from the truth of God. Then there's something called Shekhinah. Shekhinah is a Hebrew word, which is the word that we use whenever anything within reality expresses God. It doesn't obstruct God, the opposite. It allows God's truth to flow through, to shine through. So everything within this world is creating a filter, a blockage, blocking God out. Even this pen, it's blocking God out. But anything that could do the opposite, allow God's energy to seep through, to be transparent to the truth of God, that is what we call this Shekhinah. Shekhinah is here. An example of this is that we say that by Moses, the Shekhinah spoke through his throat. Usually the human throat and the human being is an obstruction to God. We don't allow God to flow through us. The opposite. We come with our own agendas. We come with our own egos. Moses was the opposite. He was a human being living on earth, and somehow he was allowing God to simply shine through. That's what made Moses so special. So when we say that a Jew could have the Shekhinah upon him or her, is there a way we could truly connect with the truth of God? The Alter Rebbe says there's only one way. There's only one thing in reality that is not stuck within this lie, within this illusion of separation from God. There's only one thing that God allows to exist within our universe, where the truth of God is truly there. And because of that, within this special space, within reality, there's a oneness between reality and God. That sense of illusion, that sense of separation, that sense of otherness doesn't exist there. And that is a mitzvah. A mitzvah is a very unique thing. The energy of a mitzvah, that's the way the Alter Rebbe puts it. The energy of a mitzvah is not an energy of separation, it's an energy of oneness. And whenever there's a mitzvah, Shekhinah is there. This is a moment of reality that is not obstructing the truth of God, the opposite. It's a moment of reality that is allowing God to shine through. Because this is what God wants us to do. This is the ultimate thing. This is a very, very big idea. So now let's think about it. And before we jump into today's piece of Tanya, I want you to think about it in these terms. Life, every single moment of life, is energy. Even the idea that I'm here right now. Every single day we only have a limited amount of human energy. And we are always using our energy. Right? In a certain way, the world is powered by energy. Everything is energy. I got here with energy. I'm giving this class with energy. I'm using energy. to teach this class. You are here with your energy. And if you did anything today, that's energy. So in a certain way, the flow of life is energy. If I pick up this pen, that's energy. I've just released some of my own energy, and I'm investing that energy to do an action. So let's think about that in terms of energy. There's energy. Any energy that is being used, that is being expended for the act of a mitzvah, that energy becomes energy that allows God to shine through. So let's think about it in human terms. Any energy that you as a human being invest in the act of a mitzvah, that energy turns into this unbelievable holy energy that is bringing God's presence into our world. So when you do a mitzvah, there's something very special happening. Energy of life, which usually life energy obstructs the truth of God. But this life energy is now allowing the truth of God to seep into reality in your life and in the world around you. Okay. Now this doesn't mean we see it, right? If only we saw it, right? Can you imagine if when we did a mitzvah, we were literally able to sense that this is a qualitatively different type of energy and that right now the truth of God is shining within my life? We don't get to feel that. It's a bummer. We do a mitzvah and it doesn't feel that special. Whatever, I did a mitzvah, Okay, I do this, I did that, I did a mitzvah. It doesn't feel very special in the moment. But the author is telling us there's something very, very big happening here. There's a difference in the energy here. And the reason for this is because we're experiencing everything through our physical bodies. And our physical bodies are simply not built to be aware, to be in tune, and to sense spiritual energy. The energy of Shabbos, for example, is different than the energy of the 6 days of the week. Do we feel that though? I don't know. The energy of the land of Israel is a different, and it's a holy space. The ear, the energy, the spirituality of the land of Israel is different. But do we feel that when we enter the space of the land of Israel? I don't know. When we do a mitzvah, there's literally the energy of life is different. This is a godly energy. There's the Shekhinah here. This is life. There's life happening, which is allowing God to seep in. God is being expressed through this life, through this energy here. We don't get to experience it necessarily. Maybe sometimes a little bit we get to experience it, but not really. That's okay. You don't have to experience things. There's two separate things. There's the truth, and then there's experiences. Experiences generally are a bonus. We can't always, right? It's a side point, but being a parent is not about the experience of being a parent. Being a parent is that you have a child. You have a responsibility towards this child. Take good care of the child. What do you say? One day I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. So what? So what, right? So you're not enjoying the experience of it. You're not getting the experience of it. So what? I mean, there's a very, in general, it's a big theme in Tanya. There's the actual thing, and then there's are you feeling it? Are you feeling it is not as big of a deal. The important thing is that this is the truth of what's happening. So we have this idea. Only a mitzvah could really allow us to transcend that sense of separation that we are all built with. And it allows us to truly bring the Shekhinah into our lives, and it's only when we do a mitzvah. The author says, now let's develop this. What energy do you put into a mitzvah? Well, it depends what kind of mitzvah. Now let's think about it. Okay, that's a lot of introductions for tonight. Let's read. So we have the handouts from today. We're up to part 3 of the chapter, page 263. And here we go. Says the Alter Rebbe, now, at the time that you are immersed in studying Torah, let's take the mitzvah of studying Torah, which is what we're doing right now, right? Right now we're all studying Torah. What happens when you're studying Torah? Your neshama, meaning your godly soul, along with just its inner two clothing of speech and thought, merges with the infinite light of God in a complete oneness. Okay. What energy do you invest into the mitzvah of studying Torah? Let's think about it. Which one of my two souls are studying Torah? Is my animal soul studying Torah? No, it's a godly soul activity. So my godly soul studying Torah. Which parts of my godly soul are studying Torah? We have 3 layers that Tanya taught us. Every single soul has 3 layers of engagement, of behaviors, of expression, of investment, how it expresses its life, how it invests its energy in things. So we could invest our soul's energy by thinking, we could invest and express our soul's energy by speaking, and we could express our soul's energy by doing stuff, by action. Studying Torah, it's not action. You're not really doing anything. You're sitting in one place, right? But you're thinking. Oh, studying Torah engages the godly soul and the layer of clothing, that's the key word we're using over here, the layer of expression of thinking. And sometimes speaking, right? Ideally, when you study Torah, you should be speaking. That's it. Okay. So what energy is being invested in the mitzvah of studying Torah? My godly soul and its thinking and speaking. So that's the energy that's being invested in the mitzvah of studying Torah. Which means this is a purely spiritual experience. It's not really physical. Is my body involved when I study Torah? Well, kind of. I have to be here. So my body is here. But not really. You're not needing, it's not a body thing. The opposite. We quiet the body down. Sit down in one place, get yourself comfortable, don't move. If you're running around the house, you're probably not learning well. Right? So studying is really, it's a spiritual experience. I'm not engaged with my body when I study. Even speaking. You speak, okay, so you're moving your mouth, but it's really more a spiritual experience of the soul. It's not action. It's not about the body. So whatever energy from your godly soul that you invest in the mitzvah of studying Torah, what happens? This is how the Alter Rebbe puts it. Let's read these words again. The final words over here of this first paragraph. The energy of your soul merges with the infinite light of God in a complete oneness. Instead of this energy of life being an energy of separation from God, all of a sudden there's this merging. Your life energy all of a sudden becomes life energy where the infinite light of God is just shining right through. There's a certain merging happening over here. There's no more sense of separation. This is the truth of what's happening. You do a mitzvah, all of a sudden, energy of life, the Shekhinah shines. Godliness is shining through. And it says the Alter Rebbe, this is what we mean. Let me shut off my ringer over here. I apologize. This is what we mean when we say that the Shekhinah rests upon someone's godly soul. As in the statement of the sages, that even when one person sits immersed in Torah, the Shekhinah is with him. Okay, this is what it means. The Shekhinah could come upon your soul, and this is an example. You're studying Torah, now your soul is giving off energy which allows God to shine through because it's being involved in a mitzvah. But learning Torah has a problem. You're only engaging your soul. What about your body? What about your animal soul? They're not involved in studying Torah, really. So says the Alter Rebbe, and here's the big idea the Alter Rebbe is trying to work towards. Bottom of page 263. That takes care of your soul. But what about your body? And what about the animal soul side of you? Page 264. The animating force that is fully integrated within the body. What do we do with that? Joel is asking a very good question. Does the energy help the animal soul? That's what the Alter is asking over here. But what about the body? What about the animal soul, which is the animating force that is fully integrated within the body? What about that? Says the Alter Rebbe, to extend the light and reflection of the Shekhinah upon these as well, you need to do those mitzvahs that engage your body in physical action. If you want to bring that your biological life energy, my real down-to-earth life, my animal soul life, my body life, if you want to bring God into there, you need to do a mitzvah that directly engages your body and action. Like what? Like putting on tefillin. Putting on tefillin is not about trying to move away from the body's stimuli and get into a spiritual space. Prayer is spiritual. Learning Torah is spiritual, which means I'm not trying to get into a physical activity. The opposite. I'm trying to, settle down the body and get into a thought mode, intellect. That's spiritual. Do a mitzvah which is all about, even schwitz, you build a sukkah. That's your schwitzing, right? You'll understand that you'll understand what I'm saying in a moment when we read it. But every single year sukkahs, when I build my sukkah and I put up the schach, every year I get multiple scratches and scrapes on my fingers, on my hands, because I don't do that much work. I'm more like a two left-handed type of guy, and sukkahs, you're schlepping and moving, and I always scratch myself, and I'm always very proud of that. Oh, mitzvah, the mitzvah is even affecting my body. The mitzvah is scratching my body. What happens with a mitzvah? Says the Alter Rebbe, page 264. Then the actual energy of the physical body that's engaged in this physical action merges with God's light and will, uniting with him in a complete oneness. Whatever happens when you do a mitzvah, all of a sudden, if you do it with your body, if you could do a mitzvah that engages the body's activities, whatever energy you're investing into this act, into doing this mitzvah, becomes energy of life that all of a sudden merges with God's light and will, becomes one with him, whatever this means. But all of a sudden, instead of us and the energy of life being something separate from God, which is klipa, right? That's the word klipa. All of a sudden it becomes this conduit. God is shining through my life. God is entering within our world in a very revealed, real way because of my life, that I'm making a mitzvah with my life. Whatever you put into the mitzvah becomes magical energy. It's holy energy that all of a sudden allows God to be present within the energy of life, within the energy of our world. What energy do you put into a mitzvah? That energy that is powering the body's performance of the mitzvah is the third clothing of the godly soul, action. So number one, which soul is powering your doing a mitzvah? When you stand up and take out your tefillin and put on tefillin, which soul is doing that? It's your godly soul. And specifically, it's your godly soul's energy of power, of action. Oh, it's action. So now we're already involving action, and that involves the body too. But here's the big idea. But an action mitzvah also involves the animal soul. When you do a mitzvah, even though a mitzvah is really, it's the godly soul doing something, but it involves the animal soul as well, which is the soul that directly animates your physical body, that is of klipat noga. This is a big idea. The animal soul is not holy. The animal soul is klipa. Klipa is the word that we use for anything within our reality that creates the sense of separation from God. This pen is klipa, not because the pen did anything wrong, but because the pen is spiritually negative in the sense that it's not tuned into the truth of God. Holiness is something which is tuned into God and transparent to God and allows God to shine through. This pen is klipa. Your animal soul is klipa. Your animal soul's energy is all about me, me, me. I want to go eat breakfast today. I want to go eat pizza, right? It's about my need. It's not about God. But when you do a mitzvah, it involves the animal soul too. We'll understand more why in a second. But the Alter Rebbe says, this is a really big statement over here. We have to really appreciate what's happening over here. The energy that soul, the animal soul, puts into this mitzvah is transformed from negative energy to positive energy. It literally merges with holiness, just like the godly soul. This is a big idea. You could take animal soul energy. This animal soul energy is always an energy of negativity, spiritual negativity. It's not godly energy. It's ego energy. But if you could get the animal soul to do a mitzvah, and anytime you do a mitzvah that involves the body, you are including the animal soul. What you're doing is you're taking energy from the animal soul, and all of a sudden, animal soul energy is bringing God's presence into our world. That's a big statement. Now, let's just think about it. What does that mean that the animal soul is involved when you do a mitzvah? The animal soul is involved when I want to go to a game. The animal soul is involved when I want to go out and get myself good food. The animal soul is involved when I'm tired, I want to go to bed. The animal soul is involved when I want to do a mitzvah? Why should the animal soul be involved? Is your godly soul involved in breakfast? Your godly soul wants to go pray, wants to go do a mitzvah, wants to go study Torah. What did your godly soul say when your animal soul says, I want to go eat breakfast? What did your godly soul say? I don't know. Okay, you want to go eat breakfast? All right, I'm going to bed. I'm taking a little nap. Wake me up when breakfast is done. Your godly soul's not interested in breakfast. Meaning it doesn't even join the activity. Why is the animal soul involved when you do a mitzvah? And the Alter gives us a very critical piece of information which really helps us understand the dynamic between the two souls and the body. This is a critical paragraph here in Tanya. Let's read. The animal soul is a part of the mitzvah. When you do a mitzvah, the animal soul is automatically part of the mitzvah. Why? For after all, it is the force that effectively gets the mitzvah done. Which soul is actually getting the mitzvah done in the body? It's the animal soul. Why is that? Let's read. Without it, the godly soul could have no influence on the body whatsoever, since the godly soul is spiritual and the body is coarsely physical. Listen to this. The way the godly soul is built, the way the godly soul is designed, it doesn't speak the same language as the body. If you know anything a little bit about computer programming, there's this idea, like what language do you speak? Do you remember in the olden days when you bought I don't know if you ever, back in the day we used to have VHSs. You remember that? Videos on VHS? Yeah, it's funny, I'm asking you guys if you remember. The question is if I remember. I remember. So VHS, there were two modes of VHSs. You remember this? There's something called PAL, P-A-L. I think it was called PAL. Was it called PAL? Or something like that. Basically, in other parts of the world, the VHS players were differently coded. And if you got a video, if you're getting like an Israeli video, chances are if it wasn't specially produced to work on a Western VHS American player, when you play it, it would play, but you couldn't really see anything. It spoke the wrong language. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, in any case, there's a lot of different examples of that. Two systems have to speak the same language. Two systems have to speak the same language. It has to be built for each other. Which means if I want this, for example, I have a laptop over here. If I put in my mouse, here's a mouse. I have to plug in a USB. They're built to speak the same language, like that my mouse could speak to the computer. The godly soul is not built to be able to function a human body. Which means, could a godly soul move fingers? No. It's not built, doesn't have that language to it. The godly soul actually is not able to biologically manipulate a body to give function to a body on its own. Only the animal soul has the ability to spread its energy throughout the body and to literally be able to move fingers, gross motor skills, everything, move your feet, everything of life, that is the animal soul. So when you're doing a mitzvah, says the Alter Rebbe, the godly soul can't do a mitzvah by itself. The godly soul can't move your hands and your fingers and your arms to put on tefillin. Rather, what's happening, continues the Alter Rebbe, the mediator between them, who's the connector between the godly soul and the body? The mediator between them is the biological animal soul that is invested in the blood of the human heart and the entire body. The animal soul is built to be able to live and manipulate a body. The reason why we can move our fingers is because there is blood that is flowing through all of our veins and constantly bringing, right, in science, what does it bring? It's bring oxygen. Okay, it's always bring oxygen. But Chassidus and Kabbalah says no. Blood is a conductor for the spiritual life of the animal soul. And that is why blood is naturally hot. There's warmth there. That warmth is the spiritual energy of the animal soul. And when blood flows from the heart throughout the entire body, it's bringing life from the animal soul. And the only reason why we have functionality within our body on the most basic level, physiological functionality, is because the life of the animal soul is giving it life and making it happen. When you do a mitzvah, the godly soul is not the only player. If you are able to do anything with your body, it's because the godly soul is working through and within the animal soul. And the animal soul is the one who's actually moving the body. So there's like multiple layers here, and all together they're doing it. The animal soul is giving the godly soul. Let's back up. The godly soul is giving the instruction, and is giving the directions. What do we want to do? I want to put on tefillin. I want to move these fingers. The godly soul works with the animal soul, and the animal soul is the one which actually executes it in the human body. The point is, whenever you do an action mitzvah, all three components of life are involved. There's the energy of your godly soul, there's the energy of the animal soul, which is moving the body, and then there's the actual body. And even the animal soul, the energy of the animal soul that goes into a mitzvah becomes energy that now is bringing God's Shekhinah, God's presence into this world. That's a big deal. That's a big statement. How are we doing? This is a big deal. A mitzvah is very powerful. A mitzvah enables us to transcend the basic limitation of life. Life doesn't allow us to connect with God. Life, by its very definition, separates you from God. But if you could make some of life into a mitzvah, all of a sudden life becomes no. It's the opposite. You become one with God. The energy of your life is a conduit. God is flowing through it. Okay. Now, this is a very big deal. Animal soul could become... Energy from the animal soul could bring the Shekhinah. The light of God could shine through energy of the animal soul. How does that work? Isn't the animal soul the total opposite? Isn't the animal soul always trying to resist and obstruct the truth of God? How could it bring the Shekhinah? Let's read. Bottom page 264. Can an animal soul be compatible for the divine? How could the divine shine in an animal soul of Klippa? So says the Alter Rebbe. And yet, it's true, and yet, despite its involvement in performing the mitzvah, the essential self of the animal soul that resides in your heart hasn't changed. Just because you did a mitzvah, does that mean your animal soul is now tamed? Does it mean your animal soul is holy? No. The animal soul had to help you put on tefillin, but guess what? The second you're done putting on tefillin, it's right back to regular programming. It's being an animal soul. Its core self, what's the core self of the animal soul? The core self is its negative traits of Klippa. The negative traits of Klippa is what the animal soul is. And it has yet to merge with holiness. Right? It's not becoming holy. So what does that mean that the animal soul could bring down the Shekhinah if the animal soul is not holy at all? Says the Alter Rebbe, page 265. Nevertheless, right now, the godly soul that is in the brain, okay, we're missing a word over here. You see that? The godly soul that is in the brain is prevailing over the heart. Oh, the godly soul that is in the brain is prevailing over the heart. And so it dominates over the negative traits of the animal soul. This is very important. We have to really think about this. What is happening whenever our godly soul is committed to doing a mitzvah? Let's back up for a second. What happens when your godly soul makes a firm commitment? I'm right now going to stand up and I'm going to go put on tefillin. What happens to the animal soul? Does the animal soul want to put on tefillin? No. But does the animal soul give resistance? Yes and no. Let's think about it. When you're getting up to put on tefillin, do you literally feel your feet trying to pull you the other direction? No. Once you make a commitment, let's do this, and you start doing it, it happens. The way it works is the godly soul is able to prevail over the animal soul. And why is this? This goes back to a very key idea that we learned about earlier in Tanya, because the godly soul is in the brain. And the brain has automatic power over the heart. It dominates over the negative traits of the animal soul. What happens to the animal soul when the godly soul says, we're doing a mitzvah? These negative traits of the animal soul are being coerced into holiness. And they voice their agreement despite themselves, assenting and willfully agreeing to do the mitzvah. For them at that moment, it's a kind of exile, as though they are asleep, as explained earlier. This is very deep. The animal soul has its own agenda, but ultimately, the godly soul is in the brain. The seat, like the headquarters of the godly soul is in the brain. Because of that, the brain has power over the rest of the body. If the brain decides we're doing this, it happens. And because of that, the animal soul could try to convince you not to do a mitzvah. But once the godly soul is doing a mitzvah, the animal soul has no choice but to power that mitzvah, which is our experience. If you wake up in the morning, like, I don't know, should I go wake up early, put on tefillin? Should I wake up early and go daven? Should I go to shul right now? Okay, you could debate it in your mind, which means you could feel the struggle of the two souls. But once you say, I'm doing it, and you stand up and do it, the animal soul can't say, no, I protest. We are not moving our feet right now. Could the animal soul do that? No. The godly soul is able to say, we're doing it. The animal soul has no choice. It's being coerced into doing it. And there's 4 different levels about how the animal soul could react to being forced into a mitzvah. Sometimes it's being coerced, being forced. Sometimes it's just they're voicing their sometimes they have to agree. They're not happy, but they agree. Sometimes they even assent, they consent. And sometimes they're even excited, sometimes they even willfully agree. But the point is the negativity of the animal soul gets put to sleep, so to speak. It's put in exile. The negativity of the animal soul lost its power. That's the dynamic, the power dynamic between these two souls. Once the godly soul says we're doing a mitzvah, the animal soul has no choice. It performs the mitzvah on behalf of the godly soul. And therefore, says the Alter Rebbe, even though they haven't really changed, meaning even though the negative traits and the negative expressions of the animal soul hasn't changed, but they do not stand in the way of the Shekhinah resting over your body at that time. The animal soul is not a resistance of allowing the Shekhinah to rest within the mitzvah that it is powering. What this means is, says the Alter Rebbe, that the specific energy of the biological animal soul that's engaged in doing the mitzvah is actually merged with God's light and united with Him in perfect oneness. That we could take animal soul energy, and it's being forced to do the mitzvah because the godly soul has that ability to force the body to do a mitzvah and to force the animal soul to do the mitzvah. And that energy, whatever energy makes the mitzvah happen, becomes energy that God's light is fully shining and merged. God's light and that energy become one. So let's think about it. And again, we don't really think about life in this way, of specific energy powering specific moments of life. But really, all of life is really just like a gas tank. If you press the pedal, you are using gas, and every single penny of gas costs money. Every single every ounce of gas you're using in your car is costing you money. Let's think about life energy in that same way. The whole day we are using energy. We stand up, we sit down, we go here, we go there. We're using up energy. Whatever energy is involved in the act of a mitzvah, that energy becomes your life energy, but it becomes holy energy. And God is shining and able to be present within our world because of that life energy. That life energy becomes one with God in the same way there's life force, your life force is present within our world. God is able to be present because it is shining through your life energy of the mitzvah act. So if 2 hours ago you used up some of your human energy to do a mitzvah, right now that part of your life, the energy of your life that went into that mitzvah, the Shekhinah is shining there. The light of God was brought into your life and brought into our world because of that moment. And that's the power of a mitzvah. Only a mitzvah is able to transcend this limitation that all of reality has, that it's separate from God, and it could allow God to shine within our world. Okay, but it goes even further. Adds the Alter Rebbe like this. We're on the bottom of page 265, right? Affecting the whole. Says the Alter Rebbe, and as a result, which means because you are bringing godly energy, you're bringing the Shekhinah into a part of your animal soul and into a part of your body, says the Alter Rebbe, and as a result, it draws a reflection of that light to all of the biological animal soul as a whole, in the entire body, as well as to the body itself. as a kind of all-encompassing aura from head to foot. So not only is there the effect that in the moment of a mitzvah, whatever energy you invest in the mitzvah actually becomes one with God, there's also the idea that there's a certain lingering aura that it does to you. What's an aura? Like, let's think about it like this. For example, let's say 3 hours ago something happened to you. Let's say something 3 hours, something, right? 3 hours later, you're still happy. 3 hours later, I can still see the joy in your face. I say, what happened to you? You say, I'm very happy. Why are you happy? Because 3 hours ago, something very happy happened to me. I don't know. I heard good news about one of my kids. I'll tell you 1 second. That was 3 hours ago. That's not now. So what happened? That's what we call an aura, a lingering effect. I was happy 3 hours ago. I was happy 3 days ago, but it's staying with me. I feel, right, the effect, even though right now nothing is happening that's making me happy, but it's lingering. So too is stress. Something could stress you out. And it's funny I'm giving this example right now because actually something a little bit earlier this evening stressed me out. The details aren't the point. I had a meeting with one of our donors and it wasn't the best meeting. And I'm a little bit stressed about it. And right now what's happening? I'm still a little bit stressed. Now, why am I stressed right now? It's not happening now. It happened a few hours ago. But that's what happens. It has a lingering effect. When you do a mitzvah, in that moment, you are bringing God directly down into your life. The Alter says that stays with you. That your whole body and your whole animal soul retains that aura. The aura of the Shekhinah. The aura of the divine presence. And it stays with the Jew who does a mitzvah. It's like an aura that, so to speak, encompasses the whole person from head to foot. Which is, by the way, which is how lingering effects work. A lingering effect is not in a specific part of your body. The aura means it's more general, right? It's covering everything, which means the source of happiness could be some very specific point in your life. The source of the stress could be one specific point in your life. But then for the rest of the day, I'm stressed. Where are you stressed? I'm stressed everywhere. Every moment I'm stressed. That's what an aura means. It encompasses you. It surrounds you. So when you do a mitzvah, there's the specific point. You did a mitzvah. A part of your life now brought God into your life. Now, what effect does that have on you? We're not even going into that right now. What does it do to a Jew? How does it change you when you bring the truth of God to shine within your life? I don't know. The Alter is not even telling us yet what the effects are, what the side effects are, what the consequences are. We'll get to that soon. But here we're having the fact. The Alter says, an aura stays with you, and it encompasses you. Like your whole life now carries the aura. The whole body, the whole animal soul carries the aura of the holiness, of the Shekhinah, of the light of the divine presence. And the Alter says, this explains the specific language used in the Zohar. Now we understand even more precisely the wording of the Zohar that we quoted towards the beginning of the chapter. What did it say? That the Shekhinah rests over his head. Not that the Shekhinah rests in his head, but it's like over his head. Meaning not within, but over the person, and somewhat external, like an aura encompassing him. Similarly, the words of the sages, the Shekhinah rests over every gathering of 10 Jews. There's an idea that when you do a mitzvah, that part, that's not an aura. The energy of a mitzvah literally, in the most literal sense, God is fully present within that life force. But for the rest of life, it's like an aura. It's over his head. It just encompasses the person, but not in as much of a deep way. So there's like two layers. The energy that goes into the mitzvah is itself becoming fully godly. The Shekhinah is expressed within that energy, and then it leaves that lingering aura over the whole body and over the whole animal soul, which we refer to that as over the head. Dear friends, at this point, we come to a preliminary conclusion. In a certain way, we're not done this topic, which means the Alter gave us a bunch of facts over here. The Alter helped us understand the mechanism of how we could bring God into our life. But why this is so relevant, we don't know yet. And we're going to learn that next chapter, which means this is still the build-up of an argument. But we can at least give already we can give some basic answers. Why is it that only a physical mitzvah is the fuel that brings God's presence within our lives? And here we have the answer. Only a mitzvah could transcend that obstruction of nature, that all of reality, even our own divine souls, are creations. And creations push God out. Like I once heard, what does ego mean? Ego stands for the words edging God out. That's what the ego is. Ego is I'm asserting the truth of my existence and not of God's existence. The only way we could get past the ego, and instead of pushing God out of our consciousness, we could actually, in the most literal sense, allow God to be present and shine within our world. Only a mitzvah could do that. And if we wanted to affect our physical life, it needs to be a physical mitzvah. And that's why, as beautiful as spiritual experiences are, spiritual experiences is not what actually gets you closer to God. What gets you closer to God is a mitzvah as dry as it seems. You put on tefillin. I don't know why I'm putting on tefillin. I light a Hanukkah candle. I don't even care. What am I feeling? I feel a lot more spiritual. I don't know. Doesn't matter. The mitzvah is what allows God to shine within a Jew. If a Jew wants to have God in their life, it needs to come through a mitzvah. It's the only way. Okay. Page 266, final note of the chapter. The Alter Rebbe adds here at the end of the chapter a little bit of a side point. And it's meaning the point of the chapter is done. But the Alter Rebbe is just going to address very briefly a certain philosophical and theological issue that may arise when you learn this chapter. And the Alter Rebbe just wants to make sure that you're not misunderstanding things. A core Jewish belief is that God never changes. God doesn't change. We change. Or in other words, we get affected. We get affected. What does it mean we get affected? Even if something makes you happy, that means you change. Something beyond you, something outside of you could change you, could affect you. If you could get happy or sad or stressed, that's change. That's an effect. There's no changes in God. That's point number one. Point number two, core belief of Judaism, is that there's no plurality in God. God is not a composite. God is not many. There's no pieces to God. God is simple oneness, indivisible oneness. When you hear this idea that we're describing in this chapter of Tanya, that God is not here, and all of a sudden you do a mitzvah, God is now here, and then God could be there, and God is a little bit of Shekhinah, and a lot of Shekhinah, and a glimmer of Shekhinah, and more Shekhinah, and less Shekhinah. Does this mean that God is changing? Like God used to not be here, and now he is here? And does it mean also there's like multiplicity in God? God is in you, and God is in me, and then there's 10 Jews over there, so God is there. Like how many gods do you have? So the author is going to address it and say, no, like you just... Okay, let's read. Page 266. Understanding levels to the Shekhinah. Okay, and the author is just going to touch it briefly. Okay, but here we go. Says the Alter Rebbe, it's important to point out that whenever we speak of extending the light of the Shekhinah somehow, that we're bringing the Shekhinah somewhere, meaning some way of bringing the infinite light into the open, none of this implies any change in God himself. Heaven forbid. We're not saying that God is changing, nor are we dividing God up into parts. How do we explain this? Says the Alter Rebbe, as the story goes in the Talmud, Tractate Sanhedrin, when a certain cult member said to Rabbi Gamliel, the great Rabbi Gamliel, he said, you say that the Shekhinah rests over every gathering of 10 Jews. So how many Shekhinahs do you have? How many gods do you have? Here's 10 Jews and here in Michigan, okay, the gods there. And then you have 10 Jews in Jerusalem, how many gods do you got over here? Thousands of gods? So Rabbi Gamliel answered, nah, you're misunderstanding it. Rabbi Gamliel answered him by comparing the Shekhinah to the light of the sun as it enters through many windows. How many suns do you have? Is it the sun of Detroit and then the sun of Vermont? The sun shines differently in Vermont because of atmospheric conditions. Ooh, so is the sun different? And then my house, I have, 10, 20 windows. So you have 20 different suns? No. There's one sun, one indivisible sun. The way that sun could shine to you depends. Okay, is there atmospheric changes? Is it a cloudy day? Is it overcast? Is it shining through this window, through that window? Is there shade blocking it? That doesn't change that the sun is one sun. So there's only one God. And God is the truth of our reality and he's present. The only question is, how much are we able to allow God's truth to shine within our world? So it's just how many cracks open could we create? It's not a change in God. Okay, and the Alter Rebbe concludes, think about this and you will understand. Okay, the Alter Rebbe just briefly touched upon it, gave us the basic answer, and think about it and you can understand. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't want you to have that misunderstanding of not understanding what it means, that the divine presence, and it changes, and that there's so many of them. Okay, but dear friends, that's chapter 35. The big idea is that the only way we could truly bring God into this world is only through a mitzvah, not through the experiences of the soul, but only through literally doing God's will within this world, and that's a mitzvah. That's the only opening that God created, which allows that the energy of reality now, instead of it blocking God out, it allows God in. That's the big idea we have to remember. Big point number 2 we have to remember. If we want to bring God into the physical reality, we need to do a mitzvah that involves physical reality. And if we have those 2 keys in our head, we'll be ready to move on to the next chapter, chapter 36, which is one of the biggest, monumental, earth-shattering chapters of Tanya, and that we're going to do next class. So 1 second. Dear friends, next week I'm not going to be in town. Next Monday there's no Tanya class. I'm going to be traveling. In 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing chapter 36. May God bless you all. L'chaim, l'chaim. I want to wish you all a wonderful night, and Hashem should give us all strength to continue being able to learn the Tanya, to be successful in the study of
Rabbi, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Of
course.
Is the Shekhinah, or the energy, or the presence of God, like you talked about the sun, always here, but when we do a mitzvah, we activate it, that we're more aware of it or something?
We allow it to shine.
But it's always here.
It's always there. For example.
Right.
Imagine a child. I don't know if it's a good example, but imagine this thing. Imagine there's a child who's in school, but he's uncomfortable in the school. A school, instead of allowing the child to shine, the child is maybe bullied, and he's underappreciated, and the teacher doesn't appreciate the child, and the classmates make fun of the child. So what's happening? The classroom environment is actually becoming an obstructive force, and the child's true personality and talents and capabilities are not shining through. What happens when all of a sudden you could create a conducive environment and the child starts shining and you see their talents? Do you say, wow, we just created new talents? No. What happened here? The child always had these talents, and the child always had this personality. The only problem is that the child was stuck in an environment where it was being stifled. None of it was able to shine forth. If you create the proper environment for it, all of a sudden the true child is shining. So think about the world that way. This whole world is godly, and yet the world doesn't allow that godliness to shine forth. And that's what I mean. There's a certain inner resistance. There's a certain inner obstruction that reality does to God. It doesn't. The way God made our world is that it doesn't allow the truth of God to shine forth. We could change that. Every single time we do a mitzvah, we're creating an opportunity where the truth of God is shining forth. That instead of this is not a part of our world and a part of our life that is holding and pushing God away. The opposite. This allowing God to shine, for God to shine through. That's the power of Him.
So that's when you asked us before, what type of religion are we? Are we an action religion? Because we're an action religion because we're able to use the force of the negative force and make it a positive force and change it. Yeah. I mean, that's what I gathered from this.
Yeah, and we'll next chapter we'll get into it even more.
Okay, all right.
It was a hard piece of Tanya today. Gotta admit, no.
Very hard. Very hard.
It's a heavy piece. Ahava signed up for a very advanced piece over here. It's difficult. I gotta admit, it's a difficult piece of Tanya. All right, Leah, go ahead.
So there's a huge emphasis on tzedakah. The tzedakah will bring Mashiach. Tzedakah, there's just so much emphasis on tzedakah. So is tzedakah considered like a bodily mitzvah? And I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so when we sponsored our first Kiddush at the Chabad in Ann Arbor many years ago, and there you could give your money, or you could do the shopping, do the prepping, do everything, and present the Kiddush lunch to the community. So we decided to do that. So it seems like it's easy in a way. You can just give your money and the reps do it. So, you know, doing it, putting your body into it. And I also cut myself. So the rabbi said, not only do you put your body into it, but you put your blood into it too. But,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm saying? I mean, because it's to write a check for some people, it's a very easy thing to give tzedakah. But to put your whole body into it. And I realized too, you had to do something to get that money, right?
Right.
So
The Alter Rebbe is going to soon make the argument, and it comes up in chapter 37, that the one mitzvah that captures life the most is tzedakah, money, giving money. And it's going to be a full page in Tanya. It'll be a full class for us. So I won't spoil it for you. We'll get there in a few weeks. But yeah, if you're looking at the power of a mitzvah in how much life energy this mitzvah captures, lighting Shabbos candles doesn't actually take up that much energy. You go to the table, even buying candles doesn't cost that much money. You light the candle, say a blessing. Okay, it's 30 seconds. It's not like building a sukkah. You could say, okay, that's 2 hours of hard work, and you schwitz and you cut yourself. That's great. As you said, blood. That's great. The author is going to make the argument: no mitzvah even gets close. No mitzvah is able to capture that much life energy of your animal soul as tzedakah does. But it's a whole class. It'll be a whole hour to go through what the author says on that. But yeah, tzedakah is number one when it comes to this goal of the mitzvah.
okay.
That's because the tzedakah, you put your whole, you wrap your whole life about making this money, so it's part of you. So when you give it, it's like taking a piece of it, that you worked hard for.
Exactly. Nothing captures life as much as our money.
Right.
But then for some people, there's huge tax write-off when you give tzedakah, when donations. You know what I mean? I guess,
Yeah.
and they say, maybe you have the wrong reasons for doing the mitzvah, but it doesn't matter because one day you'll come to the right ones.
Or it doesn't change the fact. The fact is that when we give away of our money, we're literally giving away of our life, and no other mitzvah could capture our life as much as that. But we'll get all into that when we get to that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still have a lot more climbing to do until we get there. Towards the end of chapter 38.
Stay tuned.
Good night, everybody.
Exactly. Stay tuned. Take care, everybody. Sei gesund. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving with your family. We surely have good news.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you for making the class accessible from over
Absolutely.
here.
You could thank COVID and Zoom for that.
Yes, I do.
That's when this all got started.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, wonderful. It's wonderful having you here. It's really special. Found us online. Okay, look at that. Now you're part of the crew, hopefully. Okay.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much.
We'll
I'll catch up. I'll try and catch up.
All right, take it slow. It's a lot. Don't worry about it. Okay.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.